dent it's going to make in there. The goal of all of this was to take care of our debt, take care of our infrastructure needs, get it back up to snuff, and it was that one day, you know, we could either give a rebate or we could reduce these utility rate increases, or we could get rid of them altogether. But part of the reason that we got into the hole we got into is because there weren't annual increases, and what costs were in 1990 are not what costs are today. There is inflation, like it or not. The comment that was made at the end there that instead of doing a flat annual amount, could you do something that fluctuates with some other CPI index that's not exactly 2.5% a year? Yes. I mean, that's something we could look at as well. But again, there's no perfect system for doing that, and it's part of the process. So I personally think that we need to allow this process to go forward like it is going forward. Do we need to accelerate it? I hope so. I mean, that's good. But we're barely 3 years into these. We're not even 3 years into these utility rate increases. They started in the fall of 2016, and we're the spring of 2019. So we're 2.5 years into these things. And we don't have all the data completely yet to make that decision. Certainly not in front of us tonight. We don't have the 10 to 15-year capital plan in front of us. So, in my opinion, to do anything other than defer the increases to the fall would be a knee-jerk reaction that's not warranted. I don't like paying utilities any more than anybody else, but I'm not going to whisper, cloud nine things in people's ears just because it's something that they want to hear. The reality is, we went through 5 or 6 workshops and public meetings back in 2015, 2016. We grappled with how to do it. We got public input for those that were willing to participate. Honestly, we didn't get a whole lot of participation. Letty Zimmerman came to she was the only person that came to one of the workshops. And I think if I recall correctly, Eric Lundgaard came to one of our other meetings. We didn't get a lot of participation. I would hope this time around we get more participation and more input. But it's easy to play armchair quarterback and say, I don't like utility rate increases, because none of us do. We all agree with that, but that doesn't make for a healthy utility system, and it's not the way we should look at things. We need to really analyze the data, and anybody worth their salt will tell you that. You have to figure out what the true numbers are, and you have to plan into the future, and you do the best you can with the data you have at the time, and maybe you do a utility rate study every 4 or 5 years if you can afford to do it and if it's necessary. I think it is necessary. That's why we already queued it up before Councilmember McManus even brought this forward. And so it's easy to read history backwards, and if you weren't involved, to say, well, why'd you do it that way, or why'd you do it that way? I mean, I get it. There's lots of ways you can do it. There's 100 ways that we can skin this cat, but there's no perfect way. I'll guarantee you that. And it's not true that we don't have needs. This money is already spent years in advance because we have such huge needs, especially on our electrical infrastructure. And if you've come to any of those meetings, you know that. That's a long, long list. We can have debate over, do we not want to do that project or that project, or is that project necessary or not? But that debate has happened, and has been said by many people in the public comment. We do have the data, and it was the data we had at the time. Whether it's still good data, we won't know until we have the new rate study. And so, again, I think it would be irresponsible to kick the can further because we've already gone through that process. And let's just go through this process again and dial in on exactly what it should be, going forward as best as we can. It won't be perfect. 5 years from now, there will be other people that will criticize us for what we do this time around because nobody has a crystal ball. You do the best you can with the data you have at the time, based on the studies you have, based on expert help, and you try to project out what the remaining useful life is of your utility infrastructure. And we create rebate programs. We try to have reserves in case of emergencies. You do all of that. We've been doing all of that. I hope that the rate studies come back and say, we're good. We don't need to keep raising rates. I don't know that that's the case, and I don't know that anybody in this room can say that's the case until we really analyze it. And it's easy, again, to play armchair quarterback and pretend like we know everything, but it's not the case. We don't. We really need to see the data. And so I don't know that we can vote on any deferral tonight. I have a question for a second. We can't really vote on any deferral tonight, correct, because it's not on an agenda. So to come back on voting. Mr. McManus.
Yes, I'd like to respond to some of the last several minutes here without the use of a lot of cliches. One of the statements is, we haven't raised rates since 2009. Well, that was close to the bottom of a recession when rates were raised on people. So when we make statements about, we've tried to protect things in the past. Well, no, actually, you raised rates last time at the very bottom of the recession. Excess surpluses. When we look at these funds right now, there is money already budgeted in there for capital projects. We are not just paying day-to-day expenses. For instance, in the water utility fund, there's $1.5 million in capital projects. In the wastewater fund, there's $800,000 in capital projects. In the electric fund, there's $6.389 million in capital projects. So to say that, we have to have this extra money because we have these projects are budgeted in, and we still have surpluses. So do I understand that there's a need to accumulate surpluses? Certainly. You're going to have expenses down the road. But the fact is, we're already budgeting millions of dollars every year for these projects, and we're still running surpluses. We're still running above what the projections were. Further, capital projects, we keep talking about them. I think it was brought up earlier tonight about the BC TAP transformer. I believe the cost of that was $1.2 million, and it's still sitting there doing nothing. A year after its purchase, it's not been installed, it's not doing the job that it was purchased to do, it's just sitting there waiting. Okay? The 69 kV line, I've heard about that project for years now. It's necessary so that we can have a complete loop around the city's electrical system. That was voted on. And then it was brought back after it was approved. 600 letters were sent out to residents saying, what do you think about this after we had approved it? Okay? The mayor had a lot of folks turn up and say, we don't want that after we had already voted on it. That's another one of these projects that's been put off and put off. The price keeps going up on it and costing us more down the road. To make the suggestion that what I've proposed tonight is a knee-jerk reaction or some type of armchair quarterbacking, again, I think that goes far away from the information that I requested to have be put into the packet, as well as the additional information that the utility director had placed in there. There's very solid information in there as far as what these excesses are and the reasons why we don't need this 2.5% automatic increase. Again, automatic increases are just that. They're automatic. They're not based on anything else other than somebody saying, well, we'll just do 2.5%. That's kind of what inflation is each year. Well, we don't see our costs go up by 2.5%, and yet we get that type of increase. The comparison, the false comparison all the time, well, we're still cheaper than Vegas. Well, we should be. That's part of why we're so fortunate here in Boulder City, is they built this town while they were building that big generator down there in the middle of the river. It's part of the reason why we're a fortunate city. So again, to say, well, we're still cheaper than the other places, that just doesn't hold water, so to speak. Also, getting back to, well, we're trying to get more information, we're trying to get more input. 6 months ago, Councilman Harhe and I worked to get a utility commission formed. It was kicked down the road saying, well, let's wait until we hire a utility director. Well, we could have been going through the process just as we are now to get that committee formed, and now we're just months behind on doing that. So now they're going to spend months having to get up to speed. Time's already been lost on that. With regard to the data, the statement was made that, you have a rate study. Well, the day after it's done, the data's old. That's true. It's 1 day old. When you have a rate study that's 4 years old, then it's time to look at that data and say, you know what? I wonder if that's still accurate. So we have a 4-year-old rate study that says, well, at the end of all these other rate increases, just start throwing 2.5% a year on there. And yet when we look at these budgets, we see, well, wait a minute, we keep getting these surpluses. So again, I think it's very clear we don't have to do the 2.5% now. We can wait for the rate study to be done. We can wait for this utility committee to get up to speed, for our utility director, our public works directors to get a better feel for the projects that are necessary. This 2.5% is just a burden on the ratepayers. It's not a surplus for the city that we need right now.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I have some comments. I have a question for the city clerk. In the agenda, this agenda item 14 is shown as 3 separate resolutions: 6926, 6927, 6928. However, in the agenda packet, there's no wording for these resolutions. And I would have expected to see the wording for the resolution in the same format as the prior resolution that was being repealed. Because as it is, there's no replacement. All it says, we're repealing the prior, like in the case of 6926, we're repealing number 6489. So I don't even know if we can act on anything tonight.
Councilman Hari, I think I might be able to help you with that. This agenda item is worded for possible action on the repeal. Normally what we would do if we are going to go ahead with the repeal is we would direct the city attorney to come up with these resolutions. I didn't write the resolutions initially. My recommendation is to repeal the automatic increases that are in there, and that would be the direction given to the city attorney, is to write new resolutions that would do so. And we can do that tonight. We can give direction to the city attorney. Is that correct, Mr. City Attorney? Thank you.
So in effect, you're only specifically talking about the 2.5% rate increase. There's no discussion regarding a connection charges, which is the thing that I kind of hold close to my heart to reduce in some manner.
And I would urge you to suggest a council agenda item, and I will support you on that, sir.
The other question before my prior comment, I had mentioned the one possibility that could be done fairly simply is the 6-month deferment that we could do right now. What effect that would have, especially if we put some stipulations in there that this would take place after the advisory committee was up and running, because I really feel we should have that citizen input. But what the effect would be on the yearly rate, since it would only be in effect for half a year, it would mean that there was actually only a rate increase of 1.25%, and instead of the 2.5, because it only ran a half a year. And as a result of the input from the Citizens Advisory Committee and other sources, before that 6-month deferment ends, we would then move to have this repealed or replaced in a way I would hope that it would include connection fees. I'd like to take care of it in one swipe to give some comfort to the folks who are paying electric bills who have no way to conserve because the connection fees are regressive. No matter what you use, they're still stuck with that $86 to $90 connection fee every month. So that really has to be addressed. I think that's even more important than the rate increase, especially for seniors that are struggling to survive here in town. I think it's essential to incorporate that as well. But again, I would revisit my idea of deferring for 6 months with the stipulation that they get the input from the advisory committee, and also again to have a workshop with the city council to discuss the replacement that would take place at the end of that 6 months.
So I'll go ahead and turn that into a motion, because I'm not in favor of, without data, repealing these resolutions, but I do agree that we should direct staff to defer the rate increases or to come back with a resolution to defer the rate increases to, I would just say, October. That's approximately 6 months. And I certainly don't mind directing staff to come back at the appropriate time to look at the service charges. But we're going to be looking at all of the data. So, I mean, that's the main directive I would make, is to defer for 6 months. And I'd turn that into a motion.
The rate increase, it would only be a 4-month delay. It's not scheduled to go into effect until July 1. Therefore, if you're going to delay it 6 months, it would be January 1 for the 6-month delay.
I would agree.
Okay. I'm fine with that. January 1. I'll amend my motion accordingly.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any further discussion? Okay. We're on to item number 15, the City Manager's report. Mr. City Manager.
Mayor and Council, there's no information to share out of the ordinary on those two reports.
Okay, we're to our final public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak in final public comment? Mr. Turner.
Ray Turner. I'm one of those people that rarely goes to any of the workshops or the workshops you guys put on and stuff. And to be quite honest with you, I don't expect to get much from them, because I find that when studies are done and companies are hired, consultants, they come and they deliver an outcome that, that you guys want. I don't have any faith in it. I don't trust you guys. Talking about the council, not anyone in particular, but we don't trust you. We just don't trust you. And it's such an act. It's so obvious that things are rehearsed and planned ahead of time. And we come here, we want discussion. We want to see genuine community leadership and open discussion, and not this, it's so obvious that it's all phony. And that's why I don't attend those workshops and meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal Hoskins, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the water waste that the city actually does that we pay for. There is extreme overwatering going on the lakeside during the canal area. I ride my bike nightly. I'm going through quite a bit of water every night, ruining shirts from the splash up from the tires. And maybe we could cut back a little bit of the grass because it's a lot of grass too.
Thank you. I will agree. I've ridden through those channels, and there's a lot of water coming through there. Others?
Would it be appropriate for me to make a public service announcement?
Sure, we got one more public comment, I think.
Before everybody leaves.
Judy DeShane. I just was going to make a correction for the record, maybe. The name of Mr. Donnelly's company is Cooper, not Copper. It's 2 O's and 1 P. Copper is the opposite, 1 O and 2 P's. I just thought I'd let everybody know.
No, dang it. Either way, Mr. Donnelly's got a lot of free advertisement tonight. Any others? Glenn.
My name is Glenn Fan. Good evening again. I've got just a kind of a comment. There's been a big push by the city for pushing the swimming pool project, $40 million plus. And everybody says that no, the city's not pushing it. It's just education about the ballot. Well, my question is, I don't know how many of the meetings they've had now. It's been 6 or 8 or whatever, recently, whatever. But, I haven't seen any classes, shall we say, or instructions about the other ballot questions. Why aren't we having an equal number of city-sponsored informational meetings about the OHV project? Just the water project. I don't think the city should be pushing any ballot one over the other. So I'm looking forward to when we're going to have these classes before the coming June election on all the ballot questions, and not just the water, the water park. Just my thoughts. I mean, I think it's only fair that you instruct the public about all the ballot questions with the same amount of information and time and energy as you are on the one. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others, please?
Linda Barnett. When Notre Dame was burning, there was a really beautiful quote in the Times. It said something like, "We failed as a civilization to be caretakers of this priceless history." It really made me think of Boulder City. So I wanted to specifically thank Ray Turner. When Ray came on the scene here, it was all about historic preservation. I had to laugh when somebody was citing Ray that he shouldn't have been on the Historic Preservation Committee because some other girl who lived in the historic district was going to be better than he was. I'd like to thank Councilman McManus, Ray, and the Boulder City History and Arts for really caring enough about that building to want to raise money to pay for that roof. And as higher power would have it, they contacted Mr. Donnelly, however it came through. I mean, I just think they have made such a big difference in this town, and I think everyone is waking up to historic preservation that we will not move the gardens to a different spot. I don't know if it was you, Mr. Noyola, but I was amazed today that the sculpture garden was cleaned up. It looked beautiful. I'm not sure who was responsible for that, but thank you. Was it you?
It was city staff.
Yay, bravo. So I hope we'll Okay, well, whoever it was, thank you.
Hey.
I hope it's, what will keep happening. It looked beautiful today. I was amazed. And I just, again, want to thank Boulder City History and Arts, Councilman Ray, and whoever really cares about this town. I think we're seeing a turnaround. We did lose the hospital. I didn't live here. It wasn't a big deal to me, but it meant the world to a lot of people, and we lost it because nothing was in place. So we're hoping that that's going to be changing, and thank you for everyone who cares enough to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
Mayor, Council, Victor Miller, resident of Boulder City, and I just want to say we saved the hotel, so we've been doing saving our history for a long time, and a lot of people worked very hard on that. We shouldn't forget that this has been an effort for a long time in Boulder City to save our history and our historical nature of our community, and so I'm glad it's continuing to go on, but it's nothing new. It's something that has been historic. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Okay, we'll close our final public comment and move to City Council reports. Yes, public service announcement.
So, and I'm sorry for not mentioning this earlier, but I just wanted to know, since there is a lot of energy around rates and the utility funds, we do have the volunteer forums out there on the internet. To date, we've only received 6. There's obviously a lot of people who are interested in, obviously, how those funds are structured and how we pay for the all of our expenses and how the budgets are arranged. So I guess I'm making a public service announcement to feel free and apply because we do need more than, obviously, we need a minimum of 7. Right now we have 6. I intend, at least for now, to leave it open for a minimum of another couple of weeks, but it would be appreciated if we could get more folks to apply.
Thank you. Okay, council reports. Mr. Harhay, do you have anything?
No, I'd just like to second Mr. Schumann's request for volunteers. I would like to get our Citizens Utility Commission up and running as soon as we can, but we'd like to have the best possible folks with the best possible skills to sit on that to advise the council. So, again, I encourage anyone that feels that they can have significant input into our decision-making for personal utility issues to contact the city clerk. I think it's online as well. You get a volunteer form, fill it in, and hand it in. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Levitt.
Mr. Mayor, in collaboration with the LVCVA and the Chamber of Commerce, we hosted the 2nd annual Boulder City Showcase at Cascada last Friday. It was a great venue for for this event, and it really showcased Cascada as well because, as you all know, it's not a private golf course anymore, so it does host public events. So I hope they got some business out of the showcase. We had more Boulder City vendors than we did last year. We had 20 vendors and probably 40 to 50 participants, meaning tour groups, smaller tour groups, and meeting and party planners. It was very successful. We had a lot of connections were made, not only between the vendors and the participants, between vendor and vendor. So I think it was very successful. Also, this Friday is a historic home tour. I think it's the first time we've ever done this in Boulder City. I just asked Alan before the meeting. I think there still may be tickets available, and you can go on the NevadaPreservation.org website to get tickets. And that this historic home tour was as a result of holding the showcase last year. Jill asked me to announce Spring Jam is coming up the first weekend in May. They have many more attractions and events than they did last year. It'll be very exciting, so I hope everyone gets out and supports that event. And also the same day, it's a very busy day at Veterans Cemetery.